Hello everybody, Jake here. Today in this video, I'm going to spill my guts out about what made me a horror fan, what got me into the horror genre, what made me the crazy horror fan that I am today. I'm going to go into some crazy details about, early in my childhood up through basically present day, and got a lot I want to cover here, and a lot I want to talk about, and it's going to be fun. So, I was introduced to the horror genre probably at far too young of an age. I'm 31 years old now, and I probably started watching horror when I was 4 or 5 years old. I have an older brother, 15 years older than me, an older sister, 13 years older than me, and my older brother was probably not the best influence on my choice of movies and film and so on and so forth, but oh well, got me where I am today, and I love it to this day. It is what it is. As a young child, I was really into Goosebumps. Those were pretty much the only books I even pretended like I actually was like reading in school. I'd at least have it up on my desk, when they wanted us to be reading, but I would just be trying to take a nap in class. But it is what it is. That TV show in the 90s, I loved it. I could still watch reruns of that, and like The Haunted Mask is just like the most badass story ever, just I love it. Goosebumps was a pillar of my childhood, but there was something else. The first horror movie that I ever watched was Scream from 1996. My older brother got to live that time period in his prime, from that special run from 96 pretty much to 2000. I'll call it that run from Scream through Final Destination. I was probably 5 years old when I saw Scream for the first time, and I knew from that moment on I was hooked. I fell in love. Wes Craven delivered a masterpiece, and he gave it on all cylinders. I saw Ghostface. I wasn't afraid. I didn't get scared from Ghostface. It was just a black cloak robe and a weird stretched out mask with a weird open jaw. Who cares? Who's going to be afraid of that? But I was Ghostface for Halloween as a little kid, and this and that. I didn't care, It was a fun cast of characters in that movie, and it also, yes, it introduced me to my first ever crush, Neve Campbell, Sidney Prescott, my all-time favorite actress. I enjoyed all her work to this day. I'm Team Sid all the way. But from that movie, I also was shown, Scream 2, and then another very, very important movie in that run, probably besides Scream, the best film out of that run, I Know What You Did Last Summer. You had two other, childhood crushes of mine. You had Sarah Michelle Gellar and Jennifer Love Hewitt. It was kind of funny because my older sister was into this show called Party of Five, and you had Neve and Jennifer Love Hewitt on there. I recently, in the last couple of years, I got my wife to go back and rewatch that show with me, and it brought back a lot of memories of watching that show with my older sister, who was, probably, 15, 16, 17 at the time, in that range, and I'm just a little boy who had a crush on the girls in the show. I didn't care. But I really, I look back on it now, and it's one of my favorite television shows. But, it's not horror, but, it is what it is. I Know What You Did Last Summer was a fantastic film. I still love it to this day. I'm really hoping that this reboot really happens, that Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze are on board for this, and we get what we got with Scream, what Scream 5 did, bringing back the original trio, having Neve, David, and Courtney come back for that after so long and deliver that solid film was fantastic. And I hope Freddie Prinze and Jennifer Love Hewitt can do that for I Know What You Did Last Summer, because I still know What You Did Last Summer in '98 was pretty lackluster, but as a little kid, I didn't care. I watched it. But I'll always know What You Did Last Summer was a tragedy, and I probably saw it once when I was a teenager and haven't seen it since. Don't own it. Never gonna watch it again. But also in that, in that late 90s run, you had The Faculty, you had Urban Legend, you had the Blair Witch Project, the first real found footage horror movie like that. It was fantastic. Scream 2 and Scream 3, Final Destination, Cherry Falls. You had some fun comedies in there like Idle Hands with Devon Sawa and Seth Green. It was a blast. Also, a television show for the horror fans out there. You had Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Sarah Michelle Gellar is Buffy. Absolutely freaking love that show to this day. I can rewatch it every day. My wife can't stand it, but it's fun. Just all the aspects of that are fantastic and excellent. Everything about it. But it was Scream. Scream got me hooked from day one as a little 5-year-old kid who was just obsessed from that moment on. And then my brother was just like, "You want some more?" I was like, sure, why not? Then I saw Child's Play. Chucky. Chucky freaked me out as a little boy. It was probably Child's Play and Pet Sematary were the only 2 horror movies that actually scared me as a child. I don't want to hear anything. I was not afraid of the big 3. We'll get to that. I wasn't afraid of any of the characters, or the kills didn't scare me, but being a little kid, being into toys and action figures and stuff, Chucky freaked the hell out of me. Not gonna lie. But, still a diehard Child's Play fan to this day, and gonna be till the day I die. Some movies I love more than others in that franchise, so be it. But the original Pet Sematary, same kind of thing. Wasn't a big fan of the remake and that prequel to remake kind of thing. Didn't care for it too much, but Pet Sematary always spooked me a lot as a little boy. And then my brother rented another movie right here. I saw The Exorcist at, yes, far too young of an age. Seeing little Linda Blair possessed by Pazuzu, that scared the ever-living shit out of me as a little kid, but I look at it now, and it's a fantastic, excellent made film. Not just a horror movie, but just the way the movie was made is fantastic. It is definitely in my top 5, top 10, probably top 5 all-time favorite horror movies. I watch that on a yearly basis. The Exorcist. This whole David Gordon Green thing that they're trying to do the new trilogy. I was not a fan of The Exorcist Believer. Didn't bother to go see that in the theater. I waited and watched it on Peacock, and Linda Blair's little cameo at the end, whatever, is what it is. But I was hungry. I was hungry growing up, first, second grade, and my brother's like, "You want some more?" And I was introduced to the big 3, Michael, Freddy, and Jason. I was introduced to those franchises of Friday the 13th, Halloween, and A Nightmare on Elm Street. Halloween being not only my all-time favorite horror movie, but my all-time favorite film. Absolutely adore it in every aspect of every single way. I mean, I could watch that movie every single day. It's, I don't know how many copies of Halloween. I got the whole collection. It's my favorite franchise. I understand there's quite a few stinkers in there. Not a fan of every movie in the franchise, but every single thing about John Carpenter's Halloween, in my opinion, is just the absolute quintessential horror movie. Perfection on all standards. Maybe as a little kid, I didn't notice some of the flaws in some of those later sequels that I look at now as an adult. Same thing goes for Friday the 13th. I look at Friday the 13th as a whole. I look at the first 4 films. Part 1, 2, 3, and 4, the final chapter. It ends for me there. I mean, I love Part 5, A New Beginning. I love Jason Lives. I'm cool with that. But the Kane Hodder era, when you get to New Blood, when you get to Jason versus Carrie, Jason takes Manhattan, well, takes a boat ride to Manhattan, well, to Vancouver rather. Jason Goes to Hell, Jason X, so on and so forth. The remake, it just kind of goes a little downhill for me. I'm gonna say that. But as a little kid, not gonna lie, I didn't care. I could sit there and watch Jason Takes Manhattan and kind of have a good time, but I always knew it was a shit show. It is what it is. I mean, I remember I was like 10 when I saw Jason X and Uber Jason for the first time. I'm like, oh wow, they recreated the sleeping bag kill and that whole thing. It was just, brought back some little memories here and there. Jason Goes to Hell was a complete mess. The whole invasion of the body snatchers kind of gig they had going there with Jason hopping from body to body and then Kane Hodder having Freddy's glove there at the end pulling Jason down. It was just setting up Freddy versus Jason 10 years earlier. It was a freaking joke. Don't even get me started. Same thing with Elm Street. I mean, I freaking love the original Nightmare on Elm Street. I love Freddy's Revenge Part 2. I love Dream Warriors. The Dream Master Part 4. I'm so and so on it. Freddy gets a little too MTV for me. That's the MTV Elm Street. It gets a little crazy, but I'm still okay with it. Part 5, Freddy gets really bonkers, and then you got the abysmal Freddy's Dead. Don't even get me started on that. I even knew as a little boy, I knew it was garbage. I knew it was garbage. But then Wes Craven saved us. Comes back for New Nightmare. Robert Englund portrays a pretty freaking scary Freddy in that movie again. That whole meta approach. Heather comes back, rocks it as Heather, not even Nancy. The whole meta thing. John Saxon's back in there. I'm digging it. I'm all right with it. So when it came to my introduction to the big three franchises, obviously as a little kid, I wasn't as picky. I could sit there and watch Halloween 5 over and over and over again and not care about the clown cops, not care as much that Rachel gets axed in like the first 15-20 minutes of the movie, that Jamie's a mute. I didn't notice so much. I didn't care that the later half of Friday the 13th got a little too ridiculous for me. I just dealt with it. Same thing with like the Dream Child and Freddy's Dead and even the Dream Master to a certain degree, even though I'm okay with it. The later half of the Elm Street franchise, other than New Nightmare, didn't love it so much. It wasn't my thing, but Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger, they're right there for me. And I got the other horror franchises that I started, like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. My brother's like, well, let's watch this, and I saw Leatherface, and then, I never really saw Part 2 as a kid, and Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw 3, The Next Generation, don't even get me started on that. Didn't really see too much of that. It wasn't until I got a little older and arguably the greatest remake in horror was made in 2003. The Texas Chainsaw remake came out, and my big brother took me to see that, and it was excellent. I knew as a little kid that was freaking crazy. To me, still to this day, some days it rivals the original. It's that good. I love it. I'm digging it. Hellraiser, I didn't care. I'd rent Hellraiser movies at Blockbuster over and over again. As an adult, I'm emotionally attached to really the first 2 or 3 movies. Really, mostly that first one that I really love. But the whole franchise, I wouldn't care if I got any Hellraiser movie at Blockbuster as a kid and I watched it. I didn't care. It was just more horror. Pinhead and the Cenobites. I was all right with it. I couldn't grasp it as a young child. I didn't grasp Psycho as well, but, as a 31-year-old man now, Psycho is one of my all-time favorite films. Norman Bates, I love it. I own every Psycho movie other than the remake with Vince Vaughn. Even the Part 4 movie with Elliot from E.T., the beginning, Olivia Hussey's in there, that straight-to-TV movie was all right. I'm cool with it, whatever, it is what it is. Yeah, as an impressionable little child, Leprechaun was everywhere. I do have a soft spot for the original Leprechaun. It was a staple of my childhood. It was on TV a crap ton. I was always on at like midnight, 2 in the morning on Saturday. I'd stay up late and watch it. I didn't care. But the same thing as a kid, I didn't care if I was watching Leprechaun 2, 3, In Space, or even if he was in the hood. I just dealt with it. Looking at it as an adult, absolutely not. I own the first Leprechaun movie. That's it. You know, another movie that maybe I appreciated as a young kid, but as a full-grown man, it's just a rotational movie every single year that I love. Jaws. Just Jaws. Love Jaws 2, but Jaws 3, 3D, Jaws the Revenge. Let's stay out of there. No thanks. I'm all set. But, the original Jaws, Steven Spielberg's masterpiece. It is what it is. Absolutely loved it. My brother introduced me to that as a young kid, too. It was great. Same thing with the Alien franchise. I personally really only care about the Ripley quadrilogy, the first 4 Alien films, but primarily just Alien and Aliens. Like the horror sci-fi kind of thing, that little balance there. But, he always got me into that. And I remember whenever the It mini series from 1990 was on TV, I'd watch that. Tim Curry's Pennywise was pretty cool, and I thought obviously the first half with the kids was a little more fun, and I could enjoy it, and it is what it is. I loved it, and we used to rent that from Blockbuster all the time and watch that. And my brother, God knows how many VHS tapes he stole from Blockbuster or Hollywood Video back in the day, and only if I just took care of him as a little kid. But I never did that, sadly. And then, it was a little harder to get a hold on watching some of the other lesser known 80s slashers from that time, because the 80s was all slashers. That's what horror was. But it wasn't until I got a little bit older, in my teen years and young adults, that I really started diving into some of those lesser known slasher movies that never really became franchises. Like, I love movies like The Burning. Absolutely a fantastic film. Great story to it. I really like Hell Night. That was 1981. Linda Blair in there. I like the setting in that castle, kind of gothic mansion castle kind of thing. It's pretty fun. It's a little different, I love like Chopping Mall and Graduation Day, Happy Birthday to Me, and I can go on and on and on and on and on. I'm not going to go insane here. I'm not going to go name off everyone, but I always loved it. Always loved it. And I would just rather watch horror movies than anything else. Thinking, let's see, the late 90s, early 2000s. I was into, things all the other kids were into. I was into, Power Rangers was a pillar of my childhood. I'm still a Power Ranger nerd to this day. Pokemon, same thing. The Pokemon was just hot and fresh at the time, but I was just as into horror movies as Pokemon, Power Rangers, all the cool anime shows of the late 90s, early 2000s. It was just, horror was who I was, who I am, who I always will be. My favorite kind of movie ever. And sadly, I remember my first ever theatrical experience for Halloween. I was 10 years old, and my brother snuck me into the theater for Halloween Resurrection. As a 10-year-old child, I knew that I just saw the biggest steaming pile of dog shit I could have ever imagined. And still to this day, it was a mistake. And I'm ashamed to say that Halloween Resurrection was my first theater-going experience for the Halloween franchise. And it certainly didn't get much better from there for me until a little later on in life. But it was fun, and same thing. He brought me to see Texas Chainsaw, the remake, the next year. He sneaked me in for Freddy vs. Jason, and it was awesome. It was just fantastic memories. I just loved it from all aspects. Around that time, I started realizing that there were two big dogs when it came to like horror, the directors and the two that gave us some of these big movies, and that was John Carpenter and Wes Craven. John gave us Halloween. He gave us Michael Myers. It was, what else can you ask for? But then I discovered movies like The Fog, Christine, You know, you gotta love things like that. You know, I have a little bit of a soft spot for vampires. I think that was 98, I think. They Live, you know, The Thing. It just, you can go on and on and on. And then Wes Craven obviously gave us Freddy Krueger. He gave us A Nightmare on Elm Street. And then Scream. But, you know, I love The Hills Have Eyes, Last House on the Left, People Under the Stairs, Shocker. I'm going to go on and on and on. I love Cursed. You know, that was that awesome werewolf flick in like '05 or something like that. It was, went through production hell, but I was still digging it, you know. So rest in peace, Wes Craven. John Carpenter can be a little bit of a grumpy old man, but, you know, you gave us the all-time greats. And I remember the memory of sneaking into the theater with a friend. We were in like 6th grade to see Seed of Chucky. And yeah, I snuck into Seed of Chucky, and I regret that. I'll regret that to the day I die. What an absolute shit show that was. I was certainly not impressed, even as I think I was like 12 years old at the time. I just, no thanks, no thanks. I'll when I want to see Child's Play, I will stick to the original part 2. I do love part 3, and, you know, Bride of Chucky is kind of, you know, my thing too. I love that. But I mean, Seed of Chucky just got a little too crazy, way too quick for me. It got back on track with Curse, liked that. That straight to VOD. I think it was 2013. And then Cult of Chucky was so-so. I'm all right with it. I've been a little mixed on the television show. Loved season 1. Season 2 just felt like a sequel to Seed of Chucky. Wasn't a big fan. Season 3, I'm bored with it. I'm getting ready for part 2. Hope for the best. Hoping for the best. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But then, you know, as I got older, you know, kind of branched off from my siblings and started doing my own thing, and that remake boom was hot in the early 2000s through my high school years, and, you know, I remember going in to see like My Bloody Valentine remake of that, and The Hills Have Eyes remake. You know, that was pretty cool. I was all right with that. And then Rob Zombie got my hopes up. I loved his music. Always loved his music as a teenager. I was like, yeah, let's see what Rob Zombie can do with Halloween. This is before I saw, you know, like, you know, movies like Thousand Corpses, you know, Devil's Rejects, those all his Rob Zombie movies. But Halloween, Rob Zombie, Michael Myers and Rob Zombie, just, they're like two magnets. No, they're not going to stick together. Didn't work for me. I can tolerate that first movie. Malcolm McDowell made Loomis his own. He didn't try to copy Donald Pleasance. I do like Scout's performance as Laurie Strode. Having Danielle Harris in there, having some Halloween alum, you know, I was digging it. You know, having Sheriff Brackett, you know, it was kind of funny. You know, Charles Cyphers in 1978, that was one thing. But then having Brad Dourif come in for Rob Zombie's Halloween, it was pretty cool. As I mean, I was just thinking, Chucky is the sheriff? Well, what am I going to do here? But I saw Brad Dourif, not Chucky. So I was digging that. I was all right with it. But the movie, just the white trailer trash, oof, I was not digging it. And I go in there in the theater, I think I was, 15 when that movie came out, and I just hear, well, skull fuck the shit out of you, bitch. I'm like, what the fuck? No thanks. No thanks. And that kind of freaked me out from that moment on, but I dealt with it. Was okay with it. So I wasn't very optimistic for Rob Zombie's H2 in '09, and I was obviously let down. No thanks. Not a fan. Same thing with Friday the 13th remake in '09. I was, you know, still in high school for that, and I went and saw that. I was ready to frickin' rumble. I was, as a little kid, I was 10, 11 years old for Freddy vs. Jason. I was cool with it. It was fun. But I wanted Jason. I wanted Friday the 13th. And the first 15, 20 minutes of that movie, I was just, oh yeah, let's do it. It felt like it was just the first 4 movies packed into one nice little beginning, and then from that moment on, it just fell apart for me. I'm not the biggest fan of the remake. I can tolerate it, but I'll stick, if I want Friday the 13th, I'm sticking old school. There's got to be I went and saw it right away, and there's a reason why that bombed at the box office. We had a great opening weekend and then bombed from there. Elm Street's remake in 2010. I was there opening night. I was there day one, ready to go. I don't care. I did not care that Robert was not donning the glove. I have always thought that there can be another Freddy Krueger, and Jackie Earle Haley wasn't necessarily the biggest problem of the movie. We had an emo Nancy. The whole story was cockeyed. It did not feel right. But I was garbage. I do not even own that movie in my collection. I have the original 6 and then New Nightmare. You know what I mean? I just have that first run. That's just the way it is. So I didn't have the greatest of experiences in my teenage years going back and seeing some of these remakes and this and that, and did kind of suck, but it is what it is. I've always preferably been more of a fan of slasher movies when it comes to horror than anything else. I've always gravitated more towards slasher movies than psychological thrillers or the torture porn, crazy stuff. I'm not too big on Saw. I love like the first 3. I own the first 7 Saw movies on DVD. I really only care about the first 3 maybe. I didn't even go to see Saw X in the theater. I never got emotionally attached to that franchise. For some reason, it just didn't click with me. It was, and then as I got older and older and older into my adult years now, I've gone and seen, we were in 2013, we were given The Conjuring, and that lit a fire under my ass, I'll tell you that right now, and that was fantastic. Probably the best horror movie experience of my adult years. It's going to be hard to top that. I was, at the edge of my seat the whole time. I was loving it. I've seen the first 3 Conjuring movies in the theater. I got a soft spot for Annabelle. I know a lot of people don't like the first Annabelle movie, but I was there. I was there day one. Same thing with part 2 and part 3. I was there for all 3 Annabelle movies. Overall, in the Conjuring universe, I'm not a big fan of The Nun. I don't know what it is about that. I was never big on that, but I've just been more of an Annabelle and just the Conjuring story on its own. And then what really got me into, I'm sitting here making this video today. I'm showing my face. I'm out there because when they announced Halloween 2018, I discovered a YouTuber, Dave McCrae. Dave, if you're watching, I can't thank you enough for everything you've done. I can't thank you enough for all the fun memories over this 7-year roller coaster of fun. I pretty much discovered Dave McCrae through, being a big Star Wars fan too, and after The Force Awakens, getting some feedback on that, the lead up to The Last Jedi, and that's right around the same time that they announced Halloween 2018, and like basically every day I was attached at the hip to this Dave McCrae guy. What has he got to say about Halloween today? What's going to happen in this new movie? And that was probably the most highly anticipated horror movie I have ever been in. I took that extremely serious. Probably even more serious than Scream 4. Because, yes, I was 18 at the time I just graduated high school. I was ready for Scream 4. I went to see Scream 4 for, I wanted to see my girl on the big screen. I was pumped to see Sid and Dewey and Gale, but then I was like, whoa, who's this blonde girl? I saw Kirby and Jill, and they were a little more around my age, and I was digging that, but I went and saw Scream 4 5 times during that run. I loved that. But Halloween 2018 was on a different level for me, just because of Michael being Michael. Halloween, John Carpenter was involved with that, doing the score, having his handprints all over that with the music. But David Gordon Green did his thing his way, and James Jude Courtney played a fantastic Michael. Nick Castle was involved in that, had his cameo. All the legacy was passed down. I was all right with that. I walked out of the theater satisfied. I didn't feel any need for anything else. I didn't expect to get a trilogy out of it. We did. don't think we needed it, but you know, money talks. So we got Halloween Kills, we got Halloween Ends. What are you gonna do? And I was there. I was there day one. I was through that entire trilogy ride. It was Dave McRae and who led me to other channels as well. I'm gonna talk in detail. I'm planning on doing a video about all the big channels that I follow pretty much every day that have really inspired me to give this a shot and just have fun. I'm not looking to do this as a full-time job or anything. It's a fun hobby. I like to just have fun and talk to you guys about horror, my interests, my experiences, and who cares if your favorite movie is Halloween Resurrection, if your favorite movie is Freddy's Dead, if your favorite movie is Jason Goes to Hell, for God's sakes, if your favorite horror movie is Leprechaun in the Hood, you're welcome here. I don't care. We can all be friends. We're all horror fans. We should all embrace each other. Doesn't matter. Just because you like something and I don't, or I like something and you don't, we shouldn't clash. I've gotten in so many pointless arguments with people about this and that, and I'm done with that. There's no reason. We should all just be on the same page as fans and just be respectful of everybody's opinions. But I really wish we would do that more. But sadly, we live in a pretty toxic world where we all whine and cry about each other. It is what it is. But here I am all these years later, and I remember when I first met my wife, and she wouldn't even think she'd ever watch a horror movie, and kind of forced it down her throat because it was I was all into everything, but I slowly integrated her into some things. There are a few movies that I'll never actually show my wife. That's another video. I'm really excited. I got a little surprise of a video I want to do about horror movies that I'll refuse to ever show my wife, that I never want her to watch because I'd be too ashamed. It's just an absolute joke. But I got a lot of fun ideas here, and I just thank you guys if you've stayed tuned for all this time. I really appreciate it. If you'd like and subscribe to my channel, share and let other people know, and comment down below. Let me know what got you into horror. Let me know what got you just hooked immediately. For me, yes, I had my siblings, preferably more or less my brother, who introduced me to horror. But maybe you did it on your own. Maybe you just were flicking through the channels one day and you saw a horror movie and you liked it. Let me know. Let me know down in those comments below. Until next time, I will talk to you guys soon. Thank you very much. You take it easy now. Peace.